The stars looked different from the bridge of the Endeavor. Commander Jake Harrison stood with his hands behind his back, watching the endless darkness of space through the massive viewing window. He had been in the military for 15 years, but this moment felt different. Today, humanity would meet aliens for the first time. Behind him, his crew worked at their stations. The soft beeping of computers filled the bridge. Lieutenant Kate Morrison sat at the science station, her fingers moving across the screen as she checked the data again and again. She was nervous. Everyone was nervous. The year was 2287. Humans had spread across 30 different star systems. They had built cities on distant planets and mined resources from asteroid belts. But in all that time, they had never found another intelligent species. Until 3 months ago, when the Crithians sent their message. The message was simple. They wanted to meet. They wanted peace. They wanted to share knowledge and technology. Earth's government was excited. Finally, humanity would not be alone in the universe. Jake turned to look at his crew. Kate looked up from her station and gave him a small smile. She had short brown hair and bright eyes that always seemed to be thinking about something. She was the smartest person he knew. The door to the bridge opened and Commander Ryan Carter walked in. He was in charge of Earth's defense forces, and he had come along to make sure everything went smoothly. Ryan was a big man with a serious face. He rarely smiled. "Any sign of them yet?" Ryan asked. "Not yet," Jake replied. "They should be here in 10 minutes. Ryan nodded and stood next to Jake. The two men had been friends for years. They had gone through military training together. They had fought in the border conflicts near the outer colonies. They trusted each other completely. "I don't like this," Ryan said quietly. "Something feels wrong." Jake looked at him.
"Why do you say that?"
"I don't know. Just a feeling. It's too easy. They show up, they want peace, they want to be friends. Why?" Before Jake could answer, Kate called out, "Commander, I'm picking up something on sensors. It's big." Everyone on the bridge turned to look at the main screen. A massive ship appeared out of nowhere. It was 3 times the size of the Endeavor, with smooth metal surfaces that seemed to glow with a purple light. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "Open a channel," Jake ordered. A moment later, the screen changed. An alien face appeared. The Crithian looked almost human, but not quite. Its skin was pale blue and its eyes were larger than human eyes. It had no nose, just 2 small slits. When it spoke, a translation device turned its words into English. "Greetings, humans. I am Ambassador Vex of the Crithian Empire. We are pleased to finally meet you." Jake stepped forward. "Welcome, Ambassador. I am Commander Jake Harrison. On behalf of humanity, we welcome you in peace." The alien's mouth moved in what might have been a smile. "We have much to discuss. May we come aboard your vessel?" Jake looked at Ryan, who frowned but nodded. "Of course, Ambassador. We would be honored." The next 3 months passed quickly. The Crithians visited Earth and the human colonies. They shared some of their technology. They talked about trade agreements and cultural exchanges. Earth's leaders were happy. Humanity had finally found friends in the universe. But Ryan Carter never stopped worrying. He noticed small things. The Crithians asked a lot of questions about Earth's defenses. They wanted to know how many ships humanity had, where the colonies were located, how many people lived on each planet. They said it was for trade purposes, but Ryan didn't believe them. He tried to talk to Jake about it, but Jake told him to relax. Everyone else was excited about the aliens. Ryan felt like he was the only one who saw the danger. Then came the day that changed everything. It was supposed to be a celebration. The Crithians had invited all of Earth's leaders to a ceremony on the orbital platform above Earth. It was a symbol of friendship between 2 species. Jake was on the platform, with Kate and thousands of other people. There were speeches and music. Ambassador Vex stood on the stage and talked about a bright future for both species. Ryan was not at the ceremony. He was on his command ship, the Defender, patrolling near Mars. Something still felt wrong to him. He couldn't explain it, but he had learned to trust his instincts. That's when his sensors picked up the signal. Ships, hundreds of them. They were appearing all around human space. They were Crithian ships and they were armed. "Sound the alarm," Ryan shouted. "All ships battle stations. This is not a drill." On the orbital platform, Ambassador Vex stopped speaking. The smile disappeared from his face. He looked directly at Jake and said, "Your species has something we need. Your planets contain minerals that are rare and valuable. We are taking them. You have 72 hours to surrender, or we will destroy every human colony in the galaxy. The room erupted in chaos. People started screaming and running. Jake stood frozen for a moment, unable to believe what he was hearing. Then his training kicked in. "Kate, get everyone to the escape pods," he yelled. "Move now!" But it was already too late. Crethean soldiers appeared from nowhere. They had weapons that fired blue energy bolts. People fell as the bolts hit them. Jake grabbed Kate's arm and pulled her toward a side door. They ran through the corridors of the station. Behind them, they could hear the sounds of weapons fire and screaming. Jake's heart pounded in his chest. They had been betrayed. The Cretheans had never wanted peace. They had been planning this from the beginning. They made it to an escape pod and launched. As they flew away from the station, Jake looked back and saw it explode. Thousands of people died in an instant. Among them were Earth's president and most of the government leaders. Kate was crying. Jake put his hand on her shoulder, but he didn't know what to say. There were no words for this. Ryan's voice came through the pod's radio. "Jake, are you there? Please respond." "I'm here, Ryan. Kate's with me. We're in an escape pod. Thank God. Listen, it's bad. Really bad. They're attacking every colony at once. We're trying to fight back, but they outnumber us 10-1. Admiral Bennett is organizing a counterattack at Proxima Station. Can you get there?" "We'll try," Jake said. The next few hours were a nightmare. Jake and Kate made it to a small patrol ship and headed for Proxima Station. All around them, human colonies were going dark. The Cretheans were not just attacking military targets. They were destroying everything. Cities, farms, research stations. They wanted humans gone. When they reached Proxima Station, they found Admiral Kyle Bennett trying to organize what was left of Earth's fleet. He was an old man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had fought in every major conflict for the past 30 years. But he had never seen anything like this. "Commander Harrison," the Admiral said when Jake reached the bridge. "Glad you made it. We need every ship we can get." "What's the situation, sir?" Jake asked. The Admiral's face was grim. "We've lost 14 colonies. 2 billion people are dead. The Cretheans have 600 ships in our space. We have maybe 100 left. The odds are not good. What are our orders? We fight. We make them pay for every inch they take, and we try to buy time for the civilians to evacuate." The Battle of Proxima Station began an hour later. The Crethean fleet came in fast and hard. Their ships were more advanced than human ships. Their weapons were stronger. Their shields were better. Jake commanded a small destroyer. He fought with everything he had. Around him, human ships exploded one by one. He saw Admiral Bennett's flagship take a direct hit. The massive ship broke apart and 12,000 people died in seconds. Ryan's voice came through the radio. "Jake, we need to retreat. We can't win this fight." "No, we have to hold them here," Jake shouted back. "There's nothing left to hold. We've lost 60% of our fleet. If we stay, we all die." Jake looked at his tactical display. Ryan was right. They were being slaughtered. If they didn't retreat now, there would be nothing left to fight with later. "All ships, retreat to Titan," Jake ordered. "Fall back now." The surviving human ships turned and ran. Behind them, the Cretheans did not chase. They didn't need to. They had already won. Human space was theirs now. As Jake's ship jumped into hyperspace, he looked at Kate. She was staring at the floor, her face pale. Neither of them spoke. What was there to say? Humanity had reached out to the stars looking for friends. Instead, they had found an enemy that wanted them dead. 2 billion people had been murdered in a single day. Earth's government was gone. Most of the military was destroyed. But Jake made a promise to himself as his ship fled through space. This was not over. The Cretheans had started this war, but humanity would finish it. No matter what it took, no matter what they had to do, the aliens would pay for what they had done. He didn't know it yet, but that promise would lead him to do things he never imagined, things that would change the galaxy forever. The Cretheans had made a terrible mistake. They had attacked humanity thinking they were weak. Soon they would learn the truth. Humans were not weak, and when pushed to the edge, they would push back harder than anyone could imagine. Titan was cold and dark. The ice moon orbited Saturn in silence, far from the warmth of the sun. It was the perfect place to hide. Jake Harrison stood in the command center they had built deep beneath the ice. Around him, what remained of humanity's military tried to figure out what to do next. They had been defeated, badly defeated, and now they were running out of time. Kate Morrison sat at a computer terminal, her fingers flying across the keyboard. She hadn't slept in 2 days. None of them had. There was too much to do and not enough time to do it. Ryan Carter walked into the room. His uniform was dirty and torn. He had been leading rescue missions to the outer colonies, trying to save as many people as possible before the Crithians found them. "How bad is it?" Jake asked. Ryan's face was grim. "We evacuated 3 more colonies today. That's about 50,000 people. But the Crithians found the settlement on Europa. Everyone there is dead. That's another 100,000. Jake closed his eyes. Every day brought more bad news. Every day more people died. The Crithians were hunting down every human colony they could find. They weren't taking prisoners. They were exterminating humanity, colony by colony, planet by planet. "There's something else," Ryan said. "We picked up a civilian ship near Mars. There was a scientist on board, Dr. Alex Chen. He worked at the Mars research station before the Crithians destroyed it. He says he has information we need to hear." "Bring him in," Jake said. A few minutes later, a thin man with messy black hair entered the command center. He looked exhausted and scared. His clothes were burned and torn. He carried a datapad in his shaking hands. "Dr. Chen," Jake said. "I'm Commander Harrison. What information do you have for us?" Alex swallowed hard. "When the Crithians attacked Mars, I was in one of the underground labs. I managed to hide. While I was hiding, I hacked into their communication system. I downloaded everything I could before I escaped." He held up the datapad. "Their entire military network runs through 3 central command planets: Crithios Prime, Vexar, and Thol. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier is connected to these 3 worlds. They're like the brain of their empire." Kate looked up from her computer. "How many Crithians live on these planets?" Alex's voice was quiet. "About 12 billion on each planet. 36 billion total." The room fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. Jake stepped closer to Alex. "If we destroyed these 3 planets, what would happen to their military?" "It would collapse. Without the command planets, their fleet would have no coordination. No orders, no leadership. They would be helpless." Ryan shook his head. "We don't have the firepower to destroy 3 planets. We barely have enough ships left to defend Titan." "Not yet," Jake said slowly. "But we could build weapons. Big weapons." Kate stood up from her terminal. Her face was pale. "Jake, are you talking about planet killers?" "Do you understand what you're suggesting?" "I understand perfectly. The Crithians killed 2 billion of us. They're hunting down the rest like animals. If we don't stop them, humanity will be extinct in a few months." "But 36 billion people," Kate said. "Most of them are civilians, families, children. How is that different from what the Crithians are doing to us?" Jake looked at her. His voice was hard. "The difference is survival. They started this war. They chose to exterminate us. We're just fighting back." Alex cleared his throat. "There's something else you should know. I found records in their database. Humanity isn't the first species they've done this to. Over the past 200 years, they've destroyed 47 other intelligent species. They find a planet with resources they want. They make peaceful contact and then they attack. It's their pattern." The room was silent again. Everyone was thinking about the same thing. 47 species. Billions and billions of people all murdered by the Crithians. Ryan spoke up. "If we do this, if we build these weapons, we need to be sure. Because once we cross this line, there's no going back. We'll be mass murderers. Or saviors," Jake said. "Not just for humanity, but for every other species in the galaxy. If we destroy the Crithian Empire, we stop them from ever doing this again." Kate walked to the window and looked out at the ice fields of Titan. "My mother lived on the colony at Alpha Centauri. The Crithians destroyed it 3 days ago. Everyone there died. My whole family is gone." She turned back to face Jake. Her eyes were wet with tears, but her voice was steady. "I hate the idea of killing billions of people. It makes me sick. But I hate the Crithians more. They need to pay for what they've done. If this is the only way, then we do it." Jake looked around the room. One by one, the other officers nodded. They had all lost someone. Parents, children, friends. The Crithians had taken everything from them. Now it was time to take everything from the Crithians. "All right," Jake said. "We build the weapons. Ryan, I'm promoting you to Admiral. You'll be in charge of the military operations. Kate, you work with Dr. Chen on the technical details. I want 3 ships, each one carrying a weapon powerful enough to destroy a planet. We have one chance at this. We can't fail. The next few weeks were brutal. The Crithians were getting closer to finding Titan. They sent scout ships through the outer solar system, searching for any sign of human survivors. Ryan organized defense patrols, small groups of ships that would intercept the scouts before they could report back. Meanwhile, Kate and Alex worked on the weapon design. They called it the quantum fusion warhead. It would burrow deep into a planet's core and trigger a chain reaction that would tear the planet apart from the inside. The science was complex, but the result was simple. Total destruction. Building 3 massive warships in secret was almost impossible. They needed resources, materials, and time. Time they didn't have. Jake ordered mining operations on every asteroid they could reach. Factories were built in hidden locations. Every human survivor who could work was put to use. A woman named Lisa Parker became the chief engineer. She was young, only 26, but she was brilliant. She worked 18 hours a day, designing the ships, solving problems, pushing her team to work faster. We're calling them the Retribution, the Reckoning, and the Requiem, Lisa told Jake one day. Each ship is designed to carry one warhead. They're fast, heavily shielded, and armed with enough weapons to fight their way through enemy lines. How long until they're ready? Jake asked. 18 months. Maybe less if we can get more workers, Jake nodded. 18 months. It seemed like forever, but they had no choice. They had to be patient. While the ships were being built, the Crithians continued their campaign. They had occupied Earth and were stripping it of resources. They destroyed Mars and Venus. They hunted down every human colony they could find. The Crithians also started broadcasting propaganda. They showed videos of human cities burning. They talked about how weak humanity was, how easy it had been to defeat them. They wanted any surviving humans to give up hope. But the propaganda had the opposite effect. Every human who saw those videos became more determined to fight back. Every burned city made them angrier. Every dead child made them hate the Crithians more. Ryan organized guerrilla attacks against Crithian supply lines. Small groups of human ships would attack and then disappear before the enemy could respond. They couldn't win these fights, but they could slow the Crithians down. They could make them bleed. A pilot named Nina Rogers became famous among the survivors. She was fearless, flying her fighter into impossible situations and somehow always making it back. She destroyed 7 Crithian ships in 1 month. The enemy started calling her the Ghost. One night, Jake couldn't sleep. He walked through the command center, looking at all the people working. They were tired. They were scared. But they were still fighting. Kate found him standing by himself, staring at a star map. "Can't sleep either," she asked. "I keep thinking about what we're going to do. 36 billion people, Kate. That's more than the entire human population before the war." "I know, but they killed 2 billion of us, and they're still hunting the rest. If we don't stop them, they'll finish the job. And then they'll move on to the next species, and the next, and the next. Does that make it right?" Kate was quiet for a moment. "I don't know if it makes it right, but it makes it necessary. Sometimes there are no good choices. Sometimes you just have to pick the least terrible option and live with it." Jake looked at her. "Will you be able to live with it?" "I'll have to." "We all will, because the alternative is extinction." As the months passed, the 3 ships slowly took shape. Workers labored around the clock in hidden shipyards. Resources were stretched thin. People were starving on the surviving colonies because all the food was going to the shipyards. But no one complained. Everyone understood what was at stake. The Crithians never suspected what was happening. They thought the humans were finished, barely surviving in a few hidden colonies. They didn't know that deep in the asteroid fields and on distant moons, humanity was building the weapons that would end the war. Finally, after 18 long months, the day came. Lisa Parker stood on the bridge of the Retribution and ran the final checks. Everything was ready. The 3 ships were armed and ready to launch. Jake gathered all the surviving military leaders for a final meeting. The room was crowded with men and women who had lost everything, but still refused to give up. The Retribution moved through space like a ghost. Its stealth systems were working perfectly. Crithian sensors swept past them again and again, but they saw nothing. The ship was invisible. Jake Harrison stood on the bridge watching the star charts. They had been traveling for 2 weeks. 1 more week until they reached Crithios Prime. 1 more week until everything changed. Kate Morrison sat at the weapons station, running constant checks on the quantum fusion warhead. It had to work perfectly. There would be no second chance. If the warhead failed, they would die and humanity would die with them. The crew was small, only 30 people. They had volunteered for this mission knowing they might not come back. Some were soldiers who had lost their families. Others were scientists who wanted revenge. All of them were willing to die to stop the Crithians. Lieutenant Danny Walsh sat at the communications station. He was 19 years old, the youngest person on the ship. His entire family had died when the Crithians destroyed the colony on Titan. He had barely escaped. Now he wanted to make them pay. "Commander, we're receiving a signal from the Reckoning," Danny said. "Admiral Carter wants to talk." Jake nodded. "Put him through." Ryan's face appeared on the screen. He looked tired. "Jake, we had some trouble near the Vexar system. A Crithian patrol almost spotted us. We had to destroy them before they could report our position." "Are you compromised?" Jake asked. "I don't think so. We made it look like an accident, but it was close. These stealth systems aren't perfect. Stay alert. We're too close to fail now." "Have you heard from Captain Rogers?" "She checked in 6 hours ago. The Requiem is on schedule. She should reach Thal right on time." "Good. We attack in 1 week. All 3 targets at the same time." "That's the plan," Ryan smiled grimly. "I'll see you on the other side, Jake, one way or another." The screen went dark. Jake turned to Kate. "How's the warhead?" "Ready to go. I've run every test I can think of." "It will work?" Jake noticed the uncertainty in her voice. "But," Kate sighed, "but we've never tested it on an actual planet. The simulations look good, but there's always a chance something could go wrong. It has to work. We have no backup plan." "I know." That night, Jake couldn't sleep. He walked through the ship, checking on the crew. Most of them were sleeping, but some were awake, staring at nothing, thinking about what was coming. He found Kate in the ship's small observation room. She was looking out at the stars, her face reflected in the glass. "Can't sleep?" Jake asked. "I keep thinking about my mother, about everyone on Alpha Centauri. They were scientists, families, children. The Crithians killed them all without a second thought." Jake stood next to her. "I think about them too. I think about all the people we lost. 2 billion people gone. And now we're going to kill 36 billion of them. Does that make us just as bad?" Jake was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know. Maybe it does. But I'd rather be a monster and save humanity than be good and watch my species die. The Crithians made their choice when they attacked us. We're just responding. But most of the people on those planets didn't choose to attack us. They're just living their lives. They have families, dreams, they don't even know we're coming for them. Neither did the people on Alpha Centauri. Neither did the 2 billion humans who died. War isn't fair, Kate, it never has been. Innocent people always die." Kate turned to look at him. "Do you think history will remember us as heroes or villains?" "I think that depends on whether we win. Winners write the history books. If we succeed, we'll be the people who saved humanity from extinction. If we fail, no one will remember us at all because there won't be any humans left to remember." The days passed slowly. The Retribution moved deeper into Crithian space. They saw more and more enemy ships, but the stealth systems kept them hidden. Several times, Jake thought they had been discovered, but each time they slipped away unnoticed. On the 6th day, they passed a Crithian convoy. Dozens of massive cargo ships were heading toward Earth, probably carrying more mining equipment. Jake watched them go by on the sensors and felt his anger rise. The Crithians were still stripping resources from human worlds, still erasing all evidence that humanity had ever existed. Danny spoke up from his station. "Commander, I'm picking up a broadcast from Crithios Prime. It's being sent to all their ships." "What are they saying?" Jake asked. Danny listened for a moment, his face growing dark. "They're celebrating. They found another human colony, a small one near Jupiter, about 5,000 people. They're broadcasting the attack live. They're making entertainment out of it." The bridge fell silent. Everyone heard the screaming through the speakers. The Crithians were laughing as they killed humans. It was a game to them. "Turn it off," Jake said quietly. Danny shut off the broadcast, but the damage was done. Everyone on the bridge had heard it. The anger in the room was almost physical. Kate's hands were shaking. "They're monsters. Pure monsters," yes, Jake said. "And in 2 days, we're going to kill 12 billion of them. Remember that broadcast. Remember those screams. This is why we're doing this." On the seventh day, they reached the edge of the Chrytheos Prime system. The planet hung in space ahead of them, a beautiful blue-green world. It looked peaceful from a distance. You couldn't see the billions of people living on it. You couldn't see the military command centers that controlled the genocide of humanity. Jake sent messages to the Reckoning and the Requiem. Both ships had reached their targets. Ryan reported heavy defenses around Vexar. Nina said Thal was surrounded by defensive satellites. But all three ships were in position. "We attack at 2200 hours, Jake told his crew. "That's 8 hours from now. Get some rest. Eat something. Say your prayers if you're the praying type. Because when those 8 hours are up, we're going to do something that will echo through history forever." Jake went to his quarters and tried to sleep, but couldn't. He kept thinking about what was coming. In 8 hours, he would give the order to fire. In 8 hours, 12 billion people would die. Men, women, children. All of them would be dead because of his decision. He thought about the 2 billion humans who had already died. He thought about the 47 other species the Chrythians had exterminated. He thought about what would happen if he failed. The Chrythians would find the remaining human colonies and kill every single person. Humanity would cease to exist. Jake made his decision again. He had already made it 18 months ago, but he made it again now. The Chrythians had to die. All of them. It was the only way to save humanity. At 2100 hours, Jake returned to the bridge. The crew was already at their stations. Everyone was ready. The ship's weapons were armed. The warhead was prepared. The stealth systems were holding. Kate ran the final checks on the warhead. "Everything looks good." "We're ready," Danny spoke up. "Receiving confirmation from the Reckoning and the Requiem. Both ships are ready." Jake looked at the clock. 1 hour left. 60 minutes until the point of no return. The Chrythians still had no idea they were there. Their sensors couldn't detect the stealth ships. Down on the planet below, billions of people were going about their lives. Working, eating, sleeping. They had no idea that death was hovering above them in orbit. Jake thought about them. Did they support the war? Did they know what their military was doing to humanity? Did they care? It didn't matter. They were part of an empire that had killed 2 billion humans and 47 other species. They had to pay the price. The minutes ticked by. 50 minutes, 40, 30. The tension on the bridge was unbearable. Everyone knew what was coming. Everyone knew there was no going back. At 21:45, the Chrythian sensors finally detected something. Alarms started going off on the planet. Ships began launching, but it was too late. The 3 human ships dropped their stealth systems and pushed forward at full speed. "All weapons fire," Jake shouted. "Clear us a path!" The Retribution's guns opened up, tearing through the first wave of Chrythian defenders. Explosions lit up the space around them. Enemy ships tried to block their path, but the Retribution was faster and stronger than anything the Chrythians had. Kate watched the tactical display as hundreds of enemy ships converged on their position. "We're not going to make it through all of them." "We don't have to survive," Jake said. "We just have to get close enough to fire the warhead. That's all that matters." The ship shook as enemy weapons hit their shields. Alarms blared. Systems started failing. Half the crew was dead within the first 5 minutes of fighting. But they kept pushing forward, getting closer to the planet with every second. Danny's station exploded, killing him instantly. Jake didn't have time to mourn. They were almost in range. Just a little bit further. Firing range in 30 seconds. Kate shouted over the noise. Jake looked at the planet on the screen. Chrytheos Prime. The heart of the empire that had tried to exterminate humanity. In 30 seconds, it would be dead. Everything on it would be dead. 20 seconds. The ship took another massive hit. Half the engines went offline. But it didn't matter. They were close enough. 10 seconds. Jake's hand moved to the firing control. This was it. The moment that would define the rest of human history. The moment when humanity showed the galaxy that they would not go quietly into extinction. Firing range achieved. Kate shouted. Jake pressed the button. The warhead launched, streaking toward the warhead descended through the atmosphere of Chrytheos Prime like a shooting star. Chrythian defense systems tried to stop it, but the warhead's shields were too strong. Nothing could stop it now. Jake Harrison watched the sensor display as the warhead burrowed deep into the planet's crust. It went down 10 miles, then 20, then 50. Finally, it reached the outer edge of the planet's core. The quantum fusion reaction began. Detonation successful, Kate Morrison said quietly. Her voice was flat, emotionless. The reaction is spreading through the core. The planet will break apart in approximately 4 hours. Jake nodded. He felt nothing. No joy, no sadness, no regret. Just emptiness. In 4 hours, 12 billion people would be dead. He had killed them all with the push of a button. Get us out of here, he ordered. Maximum speed. We need to clear the blast radius. The Retribution turned and burned its engines at full power. Behind them, the Krithian fleet was in chaos. They knew something terrible had happened, but they didn't understand what. Their sensors were picking up massive energy readings from the planet's core, but nothing like this had ever happened before. On the surface of Krithios Prime, people were starting to notice. Earthquakes shook the cities. The ground split open in places, releasing superheated steam. The sky turned red as the atmosphere began to burn. Panic spread like wildfire. Millions of Krithians tried to escape. Ships launched from spaceports desperate to get away from the dying planet. But there wasn't enough time. There would never be enough time. Jake watched it all on the long-range sensors. He saw the desperate scramble to survive. He saw ships colliding as everyone tried to escape at once. He saw the first massive explosions as volcanic activity erupted across the planet. Kate stood beside him, tears running down her face. "Look what we've done," she whispered. "I am looking," Jake said. "I'm watching every second of it. I won't look away. If I'm going to kill 12 billion people, the least I can do is watch them die." 3 hours and 47 minutes after the war had detonated, Krithios Prime began its final death. The planet's crust split apart like an eggshell. Magma erupted from 1,000 different points. The oceans boiled away in minutes. Cities that had stood for thousands of years vanished in seconds. And then the core itself exploded. The planet broke into pieces, each piece flying off in different directions. Where a living world had been, there was now only a cloud of burning debris. 12 billion lives ended in an instant. No more Krithian commanders. No more military leaders. No more government. The heart of the Empire was gone. Jake received confirmation from the other ships. Ryan Carter's voice came through first. "Vexar is destroyed. The Reckoning took heavy damage, but we're alive. We did it, Jake," Nina Rogers reported next. "Thal is gone. The Requiem is in bad shape. We lost half the crew, but the mission is complete. 3 planets destroyed. 36 billion Krithians dead. The Empire's command structure was gone. Their fleet was leaderless, confused, broken. Set course for Titan," Jake ordered. "It's time to go home." The journey back took 3 weeks. During that time, they watched as the Krithian Empire fell apart. Without their command planets, the fleet didn't know what to do. Some ships tried to continue the war. Others fled back to their colonies. Many just drifted in space, waiting for orders that would never come. Human forces, what little remained, began hunting down the scattered Krithian ships. It was easy now. Without coordination, without leadership, the enemy was helpless. One by one, the ships that had attacked human colonies were destroyed. On the Retribution, the mood was strange. They had won. They had saved humanity from extinction. But nobody felt like celebrating. The cost had been too high. The things they had done were too terrible. Kate spent most of her time in her quarters. She barely ate. She rarely spoke. Jake knew she was struggling with what they had done. He was struggling too, but he had to stay strong. The crew needed him to be strong. One night, Jake went to Kate's quarters and knocked on the door. She let him in without a word. The room was dark. Kate sat on her bed, staring at nothing. "We need to talk," Jake said. "I can't stop seeing them," Kate said quietly. "The people on those planets. I know they were the enemy. I know they would have killed us all. But they were still people. They had lives, families, and we killed them all." Jake sat down beside her. "I know, I see them too. I'll probably see them for the rest of my life. Does it ever get easier? I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe we're not supposed to feel good about what we did. Maybe the guilt is the price we pay for survival." Kate looked at him. Was it worth it? 36 billion lives for 3 billion human survivors. Was that a fair trade? There's no such thing as a fair trade in war. There's only survival and extinction. We chose survival. The Krithians would have chosen extinction for us. I keep thinking about the children on all 3 planets. Millions of children who never did anything wrong. We killed them all. Jake's voice was hard. The Krithians killed human children too. 2 billion of our people died, Kate. Babies, kids, teenagers. The Crithians didn't care. They slaughtered everyone. What we did was revenge, yes, but it was also justice. Justice, Kate repeated. That's a nice word for genocide. Call it what you want. But if we hadn't done it, humanity would be extinct right now. Every human child would be dead. Every hope for our future would be gone. I won't apologize for choosing to save our species. Kate was quiet for a long time. Finally, she said, I don't regret what we did. But I do hate it. I hate that it was necessary. I hate that the universe forced us to make that choice. So do I, Jake admitted. But I'd make the same choice again. Every time. Because the alternative is unthinkable. The retribution arrived at Titan 2 days later. The reckoning had already arrived. But there was no sign of the requiem. Jake tried to contact Nina Rogers, but there was no response. Ryan Carter met Jake on the docking platform. The two men embraced. They had both survived, but the cost had been terrible. Ryan's face was scarred from burns. Half his crew had died in the fighting around Vexar. Have you heard from Nina? Jake asked. Ryan shook his head. Nothing. The requiem never made it back. We have to assume she's gone. Jake felt a weight settle on his chest. Nina Rogers, the ghost. The pilot who had never lost a fight. She was dead along with her entire crew. Another 50 people dead, another cost of the war. She died a hero, Ryan said. They all did. They saved humanity. Heroes, Jake repeated. I wonder if that's what history will call us. The surviving human government, such as it was, called a meeting. They wanted to hear Jake's report. They wanted to know exactly what had happened. They wanted to understand what humanity had become. Jake stood before a group of 50 people in a small room deep inside Titan's base. These were the leaders of what remained of humanity. Elected officials, military commanders, scientists, all of them looked tired and scared. We successfully destroyed the 3 Crithian command planets, Jake reported. Crithios Prime, Vexar, and Thal are gone. Approximately 36 billion Crithians are dead. The enemy fleet is broken and leaderless. Their empire has collapsed. One of the civilian leaders, a woman named Margaret Stone, stood up. Commander Harrison, you've committed an act of genocide. You've killed more people in one day than have died in all of human history combined. How do you justify that? Jake looked at her. I don't justify it. I just did it. The Crithians were exterminating us. They had already killed 2 billion humans and were hunting down the rest. If we hadn't stopped them, there would be no humans left. 0. Extinct. I chose to save our species. If that makes me a war criminal, so be it. Another leader spoke up. What you did will have consequences. The galaxy will fear us now. They'll see us as monsters. Good, Jake said. Let them fear us. Let every species in the galaxy know that if they try to exterminate humanity, we'll destroy them completely. Fear will keep us safe. Fear will make sure this never happens again. Margaret shook her head. You've turned us into the very thing we fought against. No, Jake said firmly. The Crithians attacked first. They killed billions of innocent people for resources. We only attacked in self-defense. Yes, we killed more than they did. Yes, it was terrible. But we didn't start this war. We just finished it, Ryan stood up. Commander Harrison saved humanity. Without his actions, we would all be dead right now. Every single one of us. You can judge him if you want, but you're only alive to do so because of what he did. The room fell silent. Everyone knew Ryan was right. They didn't like what Jake had done, but they couldn't deny that it had worked. Humanity had survived. Margaret sat down. What happens now? She asked quietly. Jake took a deep breath. Now we rebuild. We reclaim our colonies. We strengthen our defenses. And we send a message to the galaxy. Humanity is not prey. We're not weak. And if anyone tries to attack us again, they'll suffer the same fate as the Crithians. One of the military commanders stood. What about the surviving Crithians? Their colonies still exist. Millions of them survived. We offer them peace, Jake said. We tell them the war is over. If they leave us alone, we'll leave them alone. But if they try to fight back, we'll destroy them too. They need to understand that the old Crithian Empire is dead. What happens next is up to them. The meeting ended with no clear resolution. Some people thought Jake. 6 months after the destruction of the 3 Crithian command planets, humanity began to rebuild. It was slow work. 2 billion people were dead, and the survivors were spread across a dozen different colonies. But they were alive, and that was what mattered. Jake Harrison stood in the command center on Titan. watching reports come in from across human space. Earth was being reclaimed. The Crithians who had occupied it were gone, fled or destroyed. Mars was being rebuilt. The outer colonies were starting to communicate again, but the cost of victory was everywhere. Every colony had lost people. Every family had empty chairs at their dinner tables. The war had taken so much from them. Ryan Carter walked into the command center. He had been promoted again, now the head of all human military forces. The scars on his face had healed, but they were still visible. Reminders of the battle at Vexar. "We just received a transmission," Ryan said. "It's from the remaining Crithian colonies. They want to negotiate." Jake looked up. "Negotiate what?" "Peace. They're offering a complete surrender. They'll withdraw from all human territories. They'll pay reparations. They just want us to leave them alone." Jake sat back in his chair. The Crithian Empire was broken. Their military was destroyed. Their government was gone. The survivors were scared and desperate. They had learned what happened when you attacked humanity. "Accept their surrender," Jake said, "but make it clear. If they ever attack us again, if they ever threaten another human, we'll destroy every Crithian world in the galaxy. No warnings, no mercy. Just destruction." Ryan nodded. "I'll send the message." Kate Morrison entered the room as Ryan left. She had been working on analyzing all the data they had captured from the Crithians. She looked tired but determined. "I've been going through the Crithian records," she said. "You need to see this." She pulled up a display on the main screen. It showed star maps, lists of species, dates of contact and destruction. 47 species over 200 years, all of them extinct. All of them killed by the Crithians, but that's not all, Kate continued. "I found evidence of other species that are still out there hiding, scared. They know about the Crithians. They've been avoiding them for years. Some of them have been watching us." "Watching us?" Jake asked. "They wanted to see what we would do. They watched the Crithians attack us. They watched us fight back, and they watched us destroy 3 planets. Now they're deciding what to think about us." Jake stood up and walked to the window. "So the galaxy is full of species, all hiding from predators like the Crithians. And now we've shown them that we're predators too." "Not predators," Kate said. "Survivors. We showed them that we won't be victims, that we'll fight back no matter the cost." Over the next few weeks, something unexpected happened. Other species started making contact with humanity. They were cautious, careful, but they reached out.
Species that had been hiding for decades came out of the shadows. Some of them were grateful.
They thanked humanity for stopping the Crithians. They said that the galaxy was safer now. They wanted to trade, to share knowledge, to build alliances. Others were afraid. They looked at what humanity had done and saw a dangerous species. They worried that humans would become the next Crithians, conquering and destroying whoever stood in their way. Dr. Alex Chen became humanity's ambassador to the galaxy. He was smart, careful, and good at diplomacy. He traveled to different systems, meeting with alien leaders, explaining what had happened and why. "We didn't want war," Alex told them. "We wanted peace. But when the Crithians attacked us, when they tried to exterminate us, we had no choice. We did what we had to do to survive, and we'll do it again if we have to." The message was clear. Humanity wanted to be friends with the galaxy. But if you attacked humans, you would face total destruction. It was both an invitation and a warning. Jake retired from military service 6 months after the war ended. He was only 42 years old, but he felt ancient. The weight of what he had done aged him in ways that time never could. The government offered him medals and honors. They wanted to make him a hero. But Jake refused everything. He didn't want to be celebrated for killing 36 billion people. He just wanted to be left alone. He moved to a small cabin on Titan away from everyone. He spent his days reading, thinking, trying to understand what he had become. Some nights he couldn't sleep. He would see the faces of the people he had killed. Billions of faces all looking at him with accusation. Kate visited him often. She had stayed in the military, helping to rebuild the fleet and establish new defense systems. But she made time to check on Jake. She was one of the few people who understood what he was going through. One evening, they sat outside his cabin, watching the sunset over Titan's frozen landscape. The sky was orange and purple, beautiful in its own strange way. "Do you ever regret it?" Kate asked. Jake thought for a long time before answering. "I regret that it was necessary. I regret that the universe is cruel enough to force those kinds of choices." But do I regret the choice I made? No, if I had to do it again, I would make the same decision, because the alternative was the extinction of our species. People are calling you a hero, Kate said. Children are learning about you in school. They're teaching kids that you saved humanity. I'm not a hero, Jake said quietly. Heroes don't kill billions of people. I'm just a man who did what he thought was necessary. History can call me whatever it wants. I know what I am. And what are you? A survivor. Someone who chose his own species over another. Someone who will live with that choice for the rest of his life. Kate nodded. She understood. She felt the same way. They had saved humanity, but they had paid a price that could never be calculated in simple numbers. A year after the war, Earth's government held a memorial service. It was for everyone who had died. The 2 billion humans killed by the Crithians, the 50,000 human soldiers who died fighting back, and yes, even the 36 billion Crithians who died when their planets were destroyed. Some people were angry about including the Crithians in the memorial. They said the enemy didn't deserve to be mourned, but the organizers insisted. The memorial wasn't about who was right or wrong. It was about acknowledging the terrible cost of war. Jake attended the memorial. He stood in the back away from the crowds. He listened as speaker after speaker talked about loss and sacrifice and the price of survival. He heard children read the names of their parents who had died. He heard veterans talk about the friends they had lost. And when someone read the names of the 3 destroyed Crithian worlds, Jake closed his eyes and listened. Crithios Prime. Vexar. Thol. 3 words that would echo through history forever. After the ceremony, a young woman approached Jake. She was maybe 20 years old, with dark hair and serious eyes. Commander Harrison, she said. My name is Sarah. I wanted to thank you. My entire family was on Alpha Centauri when the Crithians attacked. My parents, my little brother, my grandparents. They all died. If you hadn't stopped the Crithians, I would be dead too. So thank you. Thank you for saving us. Jake looked at her. He saw the pain in her eyes, but also the gratitude. I'm sorry you lost your family, he said. I'm sorry any of this had to happen. But it did happen, Sarah said. The Crithians made it happen, and you made it stop. That's what matters. She walked away, leaving Jake standing alone with his thoughts. Maybe she was right. Maybe in the end, all that mattered was that humanity survived. Maybe the moral questions about genocide and revenge didn't matter as much as the simple fact that there were still humans alive to ask those questions. 5 years after the war, humanity had recovered. The population was growing again. New colonies were being established. The fleet was stronger than ever. Earth was beautiful once more, its cities rebuilt and thriving. But things were different now. Humanity had changed. They were harder, more cautious, more willing to use force when threatened. They had learned that the universe was dangerous and that survival sometimes required terrible choices. Alex Chen continued his work as ambassador. He had established trade relationships with a dozen different species. He had created alliances and mutual defense treaties, but every negotiation came with the same underlying message: attack humanity and face destruction. The surviving Crithians lived on the edges of their former empire, broken and afraid. They never forgot what humanity had done. Some of them hated humans for it. Others understood that they had brought it on themselves. All of them were careful never to provoke humanity again. Jake Harrison lived quietly on Titan. He rarely gave interviews. He never wrote a book or made speeches. He just lived his life day by day, carrying the weight of his choices. Kate visited him one last time before she left for an expedition to a distant star system. They sat in his cabin, drinking coffee and talking about nothing important. Finally, as she was leaving, she turned back to him. You know what I think, she said. I think we were put in an impossible situation and we made the only choice we could. And I think that's okay. We don't have to be perfect. We just have to survive, Jake smiled. When did you become so wise? I've had 5 years to think about it. That's a lot of time. After she left, Jake went outside and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, 3 planets had once existed. Now they were just debris fields, monuments,